Hello everybody, my name is Seismic, and welcome back finally to another episode of the Augmentation Series. And what better way to return this series than with the OG Godzilla himself, the SH Monsterarts Godzilla 1954 poster color version or 70th anniversary special edition, however you want to call it. This is a figure that I had been hoping would be released for a very long time. I had always wanted an articulated figure of the OG himself with his supposed brown coloration, or more so his most popular coloration theory, that being the brownish skin color with the bonish yellow spines. And whenever SH Monsterarts released this figure, I was very pleased. Granted, it took me a little bit to get him, but when I got him in, overall, I was very impressed with the figure. But there is a couple small things with this figure that I feel are very lackluster. So let's go over them. One of the biggest things that I noticed with my figure in particular is that a lot of the molds on the figure and a lot of the parts were very mismatched with colors. Some of them were a dark brown, some of them were a more orangish, lighter brown, if that's even a word. And overall, you couldn't notice it from a distance, but the more you looked at it up close, it was very noticeable. One thing as well that I noticed, obviously, with SH Monsterarts is the fact that the head is relatively inaccurate. I think if you look at it from a distance, you can tell it's 1954, but when you start to go more up close with the details on it, you can definitely tell the inaccuracies with it. Another small thing about this figure that I don't think many people are going to complain about, but for me it was a little bit of a is I feel like the spines were just kind of haphazardly painted in a piss yellow color, so to say. And so I knew that I wanted to change those up. And overall, his accessories, while good, I am actually very happy with the accessories that you do get with this figure. They're pretty lackluster with the paint as well. I mean, what SH Monsterarts is, to be fair, but I feel like even just on the planes, they're just a solid color mold of gray. And it's like, could we not have gotten a little bit of detail on these planes? Granted, I understand with production costs and whatnot, yada yada yada, and it's more so a nitpick. There's a couple more things on this figure that I'll say. Again, the paint on the figure itself there is much to be desired on the paint for this figure. I feel like they could have gone a little bit more in with the shading and highlights and whatnot. So, those are our main problems that we are going to fix in the Augmentation Series. And since it's been a little bit, I'll do a little bit of a recap. The Augmentation Series is basically a series that we do on this channel where we take figures that the community feels is a bit lackluster, and we upgrade them and take them to the next level, while also giving credit and shoutouts to the artists who make lovely upgrades for these figures. And the artist that we're mentioning in today's video is none other than Coojira, or Coojira Head Designs. If you are a part of the Godzilla figure collecting community, you more than likely know who Coojira is, but to summarize, he is basically a content creator who 3D sculpts and resin prints several different sorts of head upgrades, accessory parts, and sometimes even his own entire figures like Behemoth. So far, a lot of the Kongs like 62 or 63, 67, the De Laurentiis Kong, and now Mechani Kong, and he's working on several others in the future as well. And yes, I do have some of these Kongs in my collection, and they will be getting their own videos in the future. Coojira has been in the, I guess you could say, figure upgrading game since 2021, and he has vastly improved over the last couple of years, and he even offering limited versions of his heads that are fully painted to match with the figure. Now, at the time that I bought the head upgrade for SH Monsterarts Godzilla 1954, there was not a painted version of this head, but recently, he did offer painted heads for the standard and the poster version of this figure. Unfortunately, as of recording this video, they are no longer available, but they do seem pretty cool, and if they ever restock, I would recommend buying them if you just want a head upgrade that matches the figure. So, for this installment in the Augmentation Series, I bought his Atomic God head upgrade for the SH Monsterarts Godzilla 1954, and it came here in a relatively quick time. And originally for this video, I was just going to paint the head to match the figure, but eventually a little bit down the road, I decided to take it to the next level. But for this video, I will cover how you can paint the head upgrade for the figure in specific if you do not want to paint the rest of the figure. So unfortunately, when I was just painting the head itself, I did not get much footage of the actual process. But basically how I matched the head to the figure is I used a variety of shades of brown, orange, And at one point, I even added a tiny microscopic bit of purple into the brown mixture that I was using for the base color of the head. Really, my biggest tip for if you want to match the head to the paint of the standard production figure is just trial and error and experimentation. Unfortunately, I did not get footage of how I properly mixed all the shades of colors into one concise brown that would match with the factory paint. But my biggest advice is just, honestly, might not be the best advice, but just airball it a little bit. And for the mouth itself and the teeth, I just used a standard acrylic red. And for the teeth itself, I actually painted them red and then used a sort of bone color and lightly applied it to the teeth and keeping a little bit of red on the gums itself. And this gives it a very nice gradient from gum to teeth and overall just takes the mouth detail to another level. For the eyes itself, black and white, just use a very pinpoint brush for these and just kind of a hold your breath moment. And that was pretty much it. One thing I will say about the Coojira 1954 head upgrade that I feel has not been mentioned at any point is the fact that you are going to have to take out one of the figure's neck sleeves to fit it onto the actual figure itself. This isn't necessarily too hard of a process. If I remember correctly, I took an X-Acto knife and cut out a little bit of the opening where the sleeve intersects with the ball joint and then just very carefully pull out the top neck sleeve. And then from there, the head upgrade itself should fit on nicely. So if you want to just stop there, then you can hop off the video. But for the Augmentation series, I always take my figures to the next level. So let's continue. I will say I got the head and painted it, I believe, somewhere in November, and then decided to finish this augmentation installment about like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it had looked like this for a little bit, and I was tempted to just make this a shorter video. The biggest thing that I wanted to do with this figure was starting with the body itself. I felt that the spines and the body was very lackluster. So I did a little bit of searching online, and I found this X Plus statue and its different variations, and I really liked how the spines looked along with the body's shading and highlighting. So I decided to roughly inspire it off of that. The biggest thing with these augmentation videos is I want to keep the general base of the figure looking similar to what SH Monsterarts wanted, but just further finalizing it and upgrading it. So I started with the spines on Godzilla here, and basically my method of doing that was starting with the inside darker part of the dorsal spines and coloring them to be a little bit darker, and then for the outside of the spines using a sort of light bone color and lightly dry brushing it around the spine and in the inside area to give it a more softer gradient. From there, I began to start darkening the rest of the figure to match and have one concise body color. And then here's just a little update on the Big G himself. As you can see, the spines look pretty good. They all transition nicely, and I even painted on the insides in between the dorsal plates. Not the best, not the best paint applications, but it works well enough. So yeah, now I just need to darken up his skin and then add some shading, and then pretty much overall he'll be done. I'm also going to paint the toenails a little bit. So yeah, overall I'm really liking how he's looking so far. So, and after that, we'll obviously paint his hands, and then we'll paint the planes, and then yeah, we'll pretty much be done. And for this, I just used a very dark brown because I was going to add shading and highlighting later to make the figure pop out more. And so after doing the top half of the figure, I decided to do the atomic breath piece since I wasn't a big fan of the translucent plastic that they use. I don't think necessarily there's anything wrong with translucent plastic effect pieces, but I much prefer them to be painted. And little did I know, this would take 3 attempts of trial and error. Okay, so this is the progress that I've made so far. There we go, that's better. This is the progress that I've made so far. I need to still do a couple things. And I kind of fucked up on like the big part right here. So I'm going to do a couple little changes to this. But overall, I'm relatively pleased with how this looks. I just need to make a couple modifications to it, so yeah. I did not think painting fire, and more so, I guess, smoky looking fire would be as difficult as it was. But this took about 3 tries, And for this, I actually decided to grab some model paint, which is more high quality and coats better and whatnot. So I was using a combination of like Citadel, model paint, and other sorts of brands. If I can find the names of them, I will put them on the video right now as sort of text. So again, this is all up to interpretation. I wanted Godzilla's atomic breath to look similar to what they were going for, but just taking it to another level. So basically what I did is I started with yellow, and then orange, and then red, and then having the tips of the flames, or what would look to be the tips of the flames, be sporadically dry brushed with black. And credit to this TikTok user for making a tutorial on how to paint fire. That is another really good resource for learning how to better paint your figures. It's just going online and seeing how other painters paint certain things that you may be stuck on. So after a couple tries of painting the atomic breath how I wanted it to, I was very satisfied with how it looked. So now it was time to finish darkening the figure itself. Around this time as well, I had finished the spines and I was very pleased with how they looked. I think they contrast better with the dark brown of the body itself, and they have a nice little gradient to them and they look a little foggy. So I finished darkening the figure and I began to add highlights. And for this, I used sort of a orange rust brown color, and I was applying it pretty heavily. And so I got to about the top half to the legs in terms of dry brushing the figure, and then I decided I wanted to actually paint the planes now, since those shouldn't have taken that long. So for that, I used sort of a metallic gray for the base of the plane body, then a black for the cockpit, and then I just used some simple red to add some nice red stripes throughout the plane, and I painted them on the nose part, the wings, and then the tail wing as well. And what just a little bit of paint can do to upgrade an accessory bit, right? So from then on, the accessories were finished, so now it was just time to finish the main figure. So for this, I took a more contrasting orange and started highlighting the figure and taking a small dry brush and just using a minuscule amount of that orange paint and just lightly, very sporadically, dry brushing the heightened parts of the sculpt on this figure. Okay, so one thing I did want to show off, because I do want to try showing like how to properly paint these figures. If you want to follow along in this video, I'm going to try and be better about that. So I'm doing a highlighting process on 1954 here, and I'm like hitting it with this like really bright and contrasting yellow, or not yellow, orange, that I'm going to like kind of wash over with a brown too. So I kind of just wanted to show how you do that. So I've currently got folk art. It's called plaid, I think. It's just a multi-surface like acrylic paint, nothing too special. And basically what I do for this is like you just take a brush here. You don't want to wet it or anything. I'm gonna clean it off here in a minute. Just take like just a little dab of that, and then just like mix it in there. Kind of just like distill it out. Make sure you like kind of thin it out because you don't want to hit it too hard. And then you just like very lightly. I'm gonna try and do this on camera. Just very lightly hit it. You don't want to like scrape it too hard because I've got a couple little paint blobs in here, but I'm not going to show them off. So you just hit it very lightly like so. And you can go a little bit harsher than that. I was kind of airballing it a little bit. I don't want to thin it out too much, but just enough to where you pop those highlights out. Yeah, just like hit it a little bit like this. Kind of hit it a little hard on the neck, but that's okay. And I'm just like barely hitting it with the brush, just like hovering it over. And you might have to hit it a couple times, don't worry about it. So I just want to show off that process. I'm going to try and be a little bit better about showing off the painting process for these figures with me doing live streams in the future, because I am currently working on that since you guys seem to want that. You guys seem to be in support of that. Currently kind of setting up everything right now, doing some research and whatnot. And gonna have like this top-down view. And yeah, it's gonna be fun. I don't know how long I'll be streaming for on those paint streams and whatnot, but I'll try and go for a decent amount of time. And this is basically what I'll be doing. So if y'all want to as well, I could also stream on Twitch, do like just a double stream at the same time. I just have to figure out how to do that. So I hit it a little hard in some places, but I can clean that up here in a little bit. And yeah, that's how you do the highlights. So yeah, And just to kind of show for reference, trying to kind of keep it in the light here. So this was before the highlights and then after. So you can tell it's like really popping out. So after the dry brushing and highlighting was done on the main body of 54 here, I realized the highlights were very bright and kind of popped out a little bit more than I'd like to. So in the end, I took my dark brown again and once again just very lightly watered down some of the highlighting and whatnot and left it more higher in some places, specifically more on like the muscle parts of 54 and whatnot. And then after that point, I touched up his eyes a little bit because I accidentally got some orange on his eyes. And so I touched up the eyes and then I put a matte coat on Godzilla and then I put a satin coat on the atomic breath and the planes just to give them a little bit more of a shinier look. And then at that point, we were finished. So let's take a look at the final product, shall we? And so here we have my custom upgraded SH Monsterarts Godzilla 1954 poster version. Overall, I am very pleased with the final product of 54 here. I think he looks more concise. Whenever you put him in some lighting, you can see the highlights better. The head upgrade definitely helps a lot here. I'm a big fan of how the atomic breath looks, even though it took absolutely forever to paint. And the planes look very nice, and overall, just looks a whole lot better in my opinion. Now, you might have noticed that I did not actually paint the toenails or fingernails because personally, I thought they looked fine, and actually, I think they work better with this color combination now. If you want to paint the toenails, by all means go for it, but I personally didn't feel the need to, so I just left them as is. So yeah, overall, I'm much more happy with my 1954 now, and I know this is a little bit of a rougher sort of tutorial on how to paint it. In future augmentation videos, if you'd like me to, I'm going to go over more of a step-by-step process on how to paint them how I did while showing more footage. If you saw eventually in this video, I had a top-down view with my webcam, and then the camera quality changed to a better one because I will also be live streaming me painting some of these figures along with just other figures that I want to paint for fun. So yeah, look for that stuff in the future. And so this allows me to also have a better system of recording this stuff and it not having a battery die on me. So I think I found a pretty good system for recording how I paint these figures. So yeah, but back to the figure itself, very pleased with how it looks. I think he looks much better. I love the different sorts of skin color tones on him. And, you know, I haven't painted a figure in a while to this extent. And overall, I think I was able to do a pretty good job on it. So yeah, this year I'm going to try and pump out more augmentation videos. Again, I know I'm not the best with promises, but I'm going to try it. My next figure that I'm going to be upgrading, quote unquote, is going to be the Hi Toys Godzilla 1991. So look out for that video in the future. And honestly, what a way to come back to the Augmentation series, starting off with the very first, the OG himself. So with that, I'm Seismic. Subscribe if you're interested, drink plenty of water, and I'll see you all on the flip side. Peace out.